US President Donald Trump's sudden order to downsize joint defense drills with South Korea is raising questions about the reliability of US alliances in East Asia. Many in the region were left baffled after the US president complained about the cost of the defense cooperation with Seoul while praising his personal relationship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. Japan's defense minister stressed that strong alliances with the US were critical for security.
In the most severe security environment since the end of World War II, cooperation among Japan, the US and South Korea is critical for regional peace and stability.
Well, Donald Trump was also scathing of South Korea's refusal to join the US war against Iran. He claimed South Korean President Lee Jae-myung turned him down during a phone call.
When I called recently the president of South Korea, who I think he's very nice actually, but I called him, I said, would you like to give us a little hand? We don't need help with Iran, but if you'd like, give us a hand with Iran. He said, no thanks. And I said, wait a minute, we have 39,000 soldiers over there guarding you from Kim Jong-un, your next door neighbor, and you're not going to help us on a very easy military operation in Iran?
The South Korean government has responded cautiously to those criticisms. Today, a foreign ministry spokesman said Seoul was reconsidering its contribution in the Persian Gulf.
From the outset, we've taken part in talks to secure a ceasefire with Iran and restore freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. Taking our readiness on the Korean Peninsula into account and our domestic law, we are in close consultations with the US regarding possible military contributions.
Scott Snyder is a leading expert on US Korea policy. He's president and CEO of the Korea Economic Institute of America. His books include The United States-South Korea Alliance, Why It May Fail and Why It Must Not. Welcome to DW. What went through your mind when you heard about Donald Trump's last-minute instructions to scale down US involvement in those military exercises with South Korea?
Essentially, here we go again. We saw something very similar in the first Trump administration in the context of efforts by President Trump to engage with North Korea and to prepare to meet Kim Jong-un. And in fact, the scaling down of military exercises in the first administration came immediately following the first Trump-Kim meeting. And so there is a little bit of deja vu related to this particular tweet.
OK. That's really interesting because, of course, in the first instance, we have this following a meeting. But in this instance, this appears to have come out of nowhere. And subsequently, we learn that this appears to be a prelude to perhaps reopening talks with Kim Jong-un. So the rest of us were caught completely off guard.
I think that's right. I think everybody was caught off guard because it wasn't until 24 hours later, essentially, that we got the reveal, which was that President Trump indicated that he had been in direct contact with Kim Jong-un. And if that is the case, then his return to focus on the exercises is a little bit clearer in terms of the motivations. There's also the dimension related to displeasure with South Korea in the context of issues related to Iran.
All right. Let's pick that up and come back to North Korea. We have heard in the course of today comments from Japan and South Korea stressing the importance for the region of their alliances with the US. Explain to us how that works. Who's guarding against what threat?
Well, the alliances, the U.S. alliances with Japan and South Korea are both related to deterrence against threats from North Korea, and increasingly, especially in the Korean case, the scope is expanding to include China. The U.S.-Japan alliance has always had China as a regional threat, but increasingly, I think, for the U.S.-Korea relationship, it's really dual deterrence against North Korea and China at this stage.
So does that appear to be changing, or is this Donald Trump saying, well, if I scale this down, maybe I'll get something from North Korea. Is the perception of the threat from North Korea changing, or is this just coming off the top of his head?
Well, I don't think that the perception of the threat from North Korea is changing, but the way that it works in President Trump's mind is that he has a great relationship with Kim Jong-un, therefore we don't need these exercises. And so that's exactly the opposite of the conventional wisdom, which is we need to have deterrence in place because there is a hostile relationship, and it will be necessary to go through long negotiations in order to build trust and establish conditions under which deterrence is not necessary.
OK, so where does this scaling back and the disparaging remarks that we've heard from the US president about South Korea, where does that leave the relationship between the United States and South Korea? Does President Lee have to just suck it up and smile?
Well, I think every ally these days has its own doubts because President Trump is very transactional rather than focused on trust building. And so it's really about the art of the deal at the moment. And so far, the South Korean government has been trying to keep up with President Trump on the deal-making front. But at the same time, I think in terms of broader public opinion, we see polls that show a drastic reduction in confidence in the U.S. So I think broadly speaking, South Korean public and government, they're really in a difficult situation because trust is declining, but the perception of need for the relationship and need for the alliance is still there.
OK, so let's shift our attention somewhat then back to North Korea. Donald Trump has made these overtures. As far as we can tell, nothing particular coming back from Kim Jong-un. What do you think is the calculation over in Pyongyang of this situation?
Well, honestly, we don't see evidence yet other than what President Trump has said. There's no public evidence of Kim Jong-un changing his approach toward the United States. The only thing that really has occurred over the course of the past 18 months in preparation for a possible engagement is that the North Korean leadership has worked hard to distinguish the personal relationship between Kim Jong-un and President Trump from the overall hostile relationship between the two countries. So they've left a crack open in terms of the possibility for dialogue, but overall, in terms of posture, they're really focused in a different direction. And I think that the key distinction to be made here compared to the last time that we witnessed this in 2018 and 2019 is the development of the strategic relationship between North Korea and Russia. And so that means that Kim Jong-un is bolstered by that relationship in ways that mean that he does not need the United States or President Trump in the same way that he did back in 2018 and 2019.
OK, let's talk more then about that relationship between North Korea and Russia. Increasing military cooperation, North Korea sending soldiers to assist Russia in Ukraine. What's Pyongyang learning from Russia's war in Ukraine?
Well, they clearly, the most recent estimate, I think, from President Zelensky is that North Korea may supply an additional 50,000 troops. That's an enormous opportunity for North Korea to gain modern battlefield experience and also to see the way in which the contours of warfare has changed as a result of introduction of new technologies, including drone warfare. So that is all information that North Korea soldiers can take back with them and incorporate into North Korea's own planning process, in addition to whatever quid pro quos the North Korean leadership is able to negotiate in terms of Russian provision of technology or military supplies that can help to strengthen the Korean People's Army.
OK. So let's finish then where we started. US and South Korea. That relationship damaged but not destroyed And with Seoul more cautious now about dealing with the Trump administration, as so many of the United States' allies are these days. Would that be a fair summary?
Yeah, I think that's about right. It's fraught and uncertain, and it's not going away yet. There is the potential for damage. But the other aspect that I would point to is the increasing economic cooperation in the relationship, especially in terms of areas where President Trump's reindustrialization goals require assistance in terms of provision of South Korean technology. And so that, I think, may be the factor that helps the relationship to survive, even though it's facing a lot of headwinds at this moment.
They need each other. Good talking to you, Scott. Scott Snyder from the Korea Economic Institute of America.
Thank you so much.